Hola amigos, bien o qué? Bienvenido otra vez desde aquí Medellín. Hoy, día 40, day 40, casi el medio punto con este proyecto, ¿no? Son los 20 días. Entonces, algo otro para apoyarnos o ayudarnos para mejorar nuestra fluidez, para poner más preguntas. Entonces, el tema de hoy, preguntas. So, questions. Questions is our theme today, day 40. So, asking questions to improve our fluency. Asking questions to improve our fluency. So, you might ask me a question and say, well, why? Why do we need to ask more questions? Okay, well, if you think back to all the general dialogues we're preparing for particular situations that are going to be useful for us, this is really a way of extending the conversation. So we might perhaps have one key question we need to ask. Okay, we can ask that. But if we think carefully, there's probably at least one, maybe two extra questions that we could ask the other person to make more conversation, to make the conversation last longer, give them more opportunity to speak, and therefore we get more chance to listen and improve our vocabulary. So it's useful all ways round. We get more practice at speaking because we think of a second and maybe even a third question we can ask. And then we get the bonus of the other person's answer, which brings us more useful phrases, more vocabulary, and more listening that we can pick up on accent, sound, all this kind of thing, yeah? So it's a way of going back again through some of our dialogues or situations we're preparing for, thinking again, okay, so I know there's one key question I need to ask, but let's see if I can think of a second or a third question as well. It's going to help us get more practice. As we get more confident, we can extend these conversations because the more we encourage the other person to speak, we get to listen. It's going to be a better interaction all round. So remembering that the key question words are always either a who, a what, a where, a when, a why, and a how. So as long as we use one of these, at least, to frame our questions, it's obvious it's a question word, so we can go from there, yeah? And obviously in any conversation, if the person is talking at quite length on a topic, you can encourage them to say a bit more just by saying, that's interesting, tell me more. But that's just encouraging them. That's not actually a question as such. So looking at the key question words, the who, what, where, when, why, and how, we can pick some example questions we can use using each of these particular words. Yeah. So we can have something like, okay, well, that's interesting. Who told you that? Who told you that? Well, then you get some more information back about the person that told them that information. Or, well, that's interesting. What do you think about, and then add a different topic. What do you think about something else, yeah? Where did you hear about that? So that's interesting. Where did you hear about that? Did you hear that on the television? Was it someone told you? Yeah, where did you hear about that? Or when? When did you realise that? Well, that's interesting. When did you realise that? When did you realise that? Yeah, when did that happen? Why? This is a good one. This one could be, particularly if you preface this with, that's interesting, because then it really does sound like it's not really a negative way. If you just say, why do you say that? That could be seen as a bit kind of like, well, I disagree, but maybe you don't want to disagree, you just want to find out more about it. So if you preface it with, that's interesting, why do you say that? Because you told them that you think it's interesting, I just like to know more. So why do you say that? What's more about your opinion about that? Yeah? Why do you say that? Or how do you explain that? How do you explain that thing you're telling me happened? So that's interesting. How do you explain that? What's your understanding of it? How do you explain what happened? And finally, we've got, that's interesting. Could you say more about that? Now, I know that's not technically one of our key question words, but it still works the same. So we're asking really politely, could you tell me more? Yeah? Could you say more about that? Okay, so that's pretty briefly it. The idea, as you see, I hope, take one or two of these standard question words, make a short question from that that's relevant to whichever the dialogue or the situations you're practicing, and see if you can extend your conversation by adding an extra one or two questions on the topic that you're already practicing now. And hopefully this is going to help us move our fluency a bit, because we're going to get, say, more conversation back, more things to listen to, more useful phrases, more vocabulary, and improve our confidence as well. That's our challenge, if you like, for the rest of this week. Let's see, within the dialogues we're preparing, if we can add a few extra questions. Yeah? See if we can develop the dialogues, see if that gets us a bit further down the road to our goal, which is a more fluent speech. There we go. We'll leave it there. So, thanks for joining me this time. Gracias por compartir este tiempo conmigo. Y hasta pronto. See you soon. Cheerio for now.